now if you pour enough water over a fire, it'll become extinguished. I mean, it's like Life 101, you learned that as a baby. But what if I told you that may not be the absolute truth it appears to be? Unfortunately, people often believe stuff without actually checking the facts, so we're pretty much surrounded by myths. But don't worry, because I'm here today to debunk 5 myths which you most certainly thought were true. Number 1. Sunflowers follow the sun. Sunflowers are really cool plants, especially because of the special ability they have to always look in the direction of the sun. This is why you see these huge fields of sunflowers all pointing in the exact same direction. Except, it's not. You see, adult sunflowers don't actually follow the sun at all. It's just not true. But then, why do they all align perfectly? Well, the key is in adult, because young sunflowers in the bud stage before they actually grow the flower do go from facing east to facing west throughout daytime, effectively following the sun, likely to promote growth. But then, when they become actual flowers, they lose their ability to move that way and simply face east. The reason for this is that as the sun comes out from the east, it warms up the flowers in the morning and makes it more likely for pollinators, which are attracted to warm flowers, to spread their pollen. So if you ever see a sunflower in full bloom following the sun, I don't know, run away, it's more likely to be a super secret government surveillance camera. Number 2. A little alcohol can actually be good for your health.
Alcohol is a controversial topic, to say the least. There's long been a running debate over just how much is too much, with some people saying that any amount is bad for you. However, more recently, you might have read or heard people say that a little alcohol can actually reduce your risk of Alzheimer's and heart disease later on. Well, these claims are outdated at best and were probably made by someone just looking for an excuse to drink. Unfortunately, the idea has spread by wildfire because it seems we believe what best suits us.
The assertion that light drinking could help prevent dementia came from observational studies with very limited evidence and control, which found that people who drank in moderation had a lower risk of diseases like Alzheimer's later on. However, it turns out that came from correlation, not causation, as newer studies using Mendelian randomization, basically studies accounting for genetic variation, with more extensive data, actually show a completely linear relationship between alcohol use and risk of dementia. And almost the exact same thing happened with heart conditions. The flawed data may have come from the reduced stress levels resulting from the impairment of the brain associated with drinking, but applying Mendelian randomization similarly shows that no amount of alcohol is actually helpful.
Not only that, but excessive drinking has always been, and still is, strongly linked to dementia due to the damage it can cause to the brain. And let's not even get into the sheer number of ways it can wreak havoc on the cardiovascular system. From increasing blood pressure to greatly exacerbating the risk of a heart attack, there is no safe amount of alcohol, let alone a healthy one. So the current consensus is, it's best not to drink at all.
Number 3. You should never sleep with a cell phone in your room. Okay, so this one probably didn't even come from a serious study, but from plain misinformation. The idea is that as Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, etc. use electromagnetic waves, i.e. radiation, to communicate, and your phone is constantly emitting and receiving this radiation, even while not being used, having a cell phone near you while you sleep could expose you to levels of radiation, which could cause things like cancer. However, here's the misconception, because radiation is a much broader term which doesn't only include the harmful kind. In fact, visible light, the one emitted by your flashlight, is also radiation, and it's completely harmless. The key here is the frequency, because the frequency of electromagnetic waves determines their energy. The higher the frequency, the more energy they have. The problem with high energy photons is that they're capable of damaging your DNA, which can have serious consequences given enough exposure. Now take a look at this. It's the electromagnetic spectrum. As you can see, here we have visible light in this thin band of frequencies, and towards the shorter, more energetic side, we have ultraviolet light, and beyond that are the frequencies that can be considered dangerous. Now, let's see where Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are. Well, it turns out that the very longest section of wavelengths, radio waves, with infrared radiation, the one emitted simply by objects being hot, in between. Cell phone radiation is completely innocuous, even more than, your ceiling light. Number 4. The mantle is made of magma. This is a diagram of the Earth's interior. As you can see, we have the crust at the top, then a huge layer of magma called the mantle, which carries heat through convection currents, and finally the core, composed of a liquid outer core and a solid inner core. Except a part of what I just said is not true. The mantle is not magma. In fact, it's not liquid at all. It's made of solid rock. The misconception here comes from some of the mantle's behaviors, like letting tectonic plates slide over it and sometimes sink into it, as if they were platforms floating on a sea. However, this is possible because we're talking of geological timescales and enormous forces. This is only made worse by the fact that it has convection currents, which typically only happen in fluids. And again, it's because the extreme conditions cause that solid rock to behave kind of like a viscous liquid in the very long term.
However, it gets even more confusing, because temperatures in the mantle can reach up to 3000 degrees, which is double the melting point of silica, its main constituent. So then, is it molten or not? Well, you see, the extreme pressure down there, namely up to 100 billion pascals, actually prevents melting, because remember that melting point increases with pressure. So, even though your geography textbooks seem to suggest that the mantle is liquid, it's absolutely not.
Number 5. Water puts out fire.
Let me end today's video with a really hot take. Water doesn't actually put out fire. You heard that right. But then, why do firefighters use it to, put out fires?
Well, as you might already know, fire needs 3 things to exist: fuel, oxygen, and heat. You might think the fire is extinguished because water blocks the oxygen from it. It covers it. But that's not actually the reason. What water takes away is the heat, because as its boiling point is so low, it evaporates almost instantly as soon as it touches the fire, taking a lot of heat with the vapor molecules. But really, any liquid will do this. For example, ethanol would be even better, as it has an even lower boiling point, if it wasn't for the fact that it's flammable. But then, water does put out fire, right? Well, not exactly. You see, there are many types of fire, what we call classes. Class A is fire from ordinary combustibles, the normal kind, let's say. Class B is for flammable liquids. Class C is for flammable gases, D is for combustible metals like lithium, and then we have a few classes whose letter varies depending on the country, and they're electrical fires and fires from oils and fats. And out of all these kinds of fire, water can only potentially put out one: Class A fires. In fact, if you pour water over a liquid or gas fire, it'll only make it worse by spreading the fuel, and can potentially cause liquid fuel to vaporize and explode. For metal fires, water is actually likely to react with the metal and also explode. On electrical fires, water will cause short circuits and make even more fire. And for oil, it's the same as with liquid fires. So technically, if we are to make a general statement, it's that in most cases you shouldn't pour water over fire, because not only will it not work, but it'll make it worse. You didn't see that coming, did you?
Well, before I go, I have an important announcement to make. We finally reached 1000 subscribers! It went so fast! I think it was mainly because my other channel exploded, but regardless, we finally reached the 4 digits in the decimal system. It'll probably still take a while for the channel to get monetized, although I have set up a Ko-fi page, so if any of you want to support the channel with a small donation, that would be greatly appreciated. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and tell me down in the comments if you'd like to see more myth debunking. All that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.